Hi, and welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 46. I'm going to talk about Wolf Guy, Enraged Lycanthrope from 1975. I watched this on Midnight Pulp. I had not seen this before. As always, first we're going to talk about the prominent crew and cast. The film was directed by Kazuhiko Yamaguchi, written by Fumio Konami. Now, you remember what I said about not speaking or reading Spanish before? Yeah, that applies to Japanese as well. I had trouble tracking down information about the crew. The cast includes Shinichi Chiba as Akira Inugami. He was billed as Sonny Chiba. Kiyoshi Machida as Kato. Harumi Sone as Arai. Hiroshi Nawa as Keiichi Manabe. Ryuki Yasaku as Hanamura. Kinji Takanami as Hiruma. Toshimichi Takahashi as the werewolf. Etsuko Nami as Mika Ogata. Kumi Taguchi as Katie Aoki, billed as Connie Kobayashi, and Yayao Watanabe as Taka Inugami. Sonny Chiba was born Sadahano Maeda and credited as Shiichi Chiba early in his career. He is a legendary Japanese actor, martial artist, film producer, and iconic figure in the world of martial arts cinema. He was a talented enough gymnast to make the Japanese Olympic team until a back injury ended that career. That's when he started studying karate. Chiba entered into the entertainment industry in the late 1950s, working as a stage actor and stuntman. His breakthrough came in the 1970s when he gained international fame in martial arts and action films. Chiba's martial arts prowess and on-screen charisma made him a staple in the genre. He's best known for his portrayal of Hattori Hanzo in Kinji Fukasaku's Shadow Warriors series, and the character Terry Tsurugi in the Street Fighter series, which earned him widespread recognition. Chiba's impact on martial arts cinema extended beyond Japan, influencing filmmakers and actors globally. In addition to his acting career, Sonny Chiba founded the Japan Action Club, a stunt and action choreography organization that contributed significantly to the development of action sequences in Japanese cinema. Chiba's legacy endures to this day, and he is revered as a martial arts cinema icon, with a filmography that includes over 125 titles. It was tough to find many details on the other actors in this film. I suspect part of that is my lack of access to Japanese data sources, but I also think the Japanese culture might just be a bit more private, but that could also just be my preconceived notions, so I wouldn't read too much into that. I would be interested to hear from anyone who knows the culture better if that's correct. This was the first film for the project that felt really spicy. Easily more nudity and blood than any picture I've watched so far. It's high energy and fast paced, and it's fun to watch. So yes, if you are of age, I totally recommend it. This film was inspired by a manga entitled Wolf Guy, released in 1970, and is a loose sequel to a film entitled Horror of the Wolf from 1973. I've been trying hard to get access to either, but with no luck so far. As far as I can tell, they've never been released in English. I did manage to track down the 2007 reboot of the manga, and I'll discuss that towards the end of this video. So, let's discuss the synopsis. A man in a stylish white suit with white gloves runs down the middle of a crowded Tokyo street, screaming about a tiger. He stops traffic and is cut to ribbons by something invisible. He dies, his body bearing what looks like tiger claw scratches. This sordid spectacle is witnessed by Inugami, who is a reporter based on his trench coat. Credits roll over black and white shots of soldiers gunning down unarmed civilians in a war-zone war crime. A lone child survives and stares into the camera. Cut to Inugami, implying that he was the boy. Cops initially suspect Inugami of the crime, but when the autopsy confirms that a human couldn't have made those wounds without a weapon, and Inugami has no weapon on him, they let him go. Oh, and Inugami goes by the nickname Wolf. The victim was named Hanamura and was a predatory scumbag who used to be in a band called The Mob, managed by Manabe Productions. He's the third member of the band to die like this. Hiruma is the only band member still alive, so Inugami tracks him down, huddled and hiding in an alley. He confesses to gang raping a singer named Miki. As a consequence, she became infected with syphilis and, I quote, hooked on smack. The assault was ordered by Manabe Productions, the Yakuza-riddled company for which Miki worked. 6 thugs show up to shut Hiruma up. Inugami does an impressive job holding them off long enough for Hiruma to get away, but one of the Yakuza has a gun and shoots Inugami in the shoulder. Inugami manages to make a break for it himself and runs. He's rescued by a mysterious motorcyclist who turns out to be a sexy woman. She strips mostly naked before treating his wounds. Later, Inugami gets info from an informant, Arai, that the Manabe Productions president himself, Keiichi Manabe, gave the order to destroy Mickey. Arai is worried because the Sukata Yakuza gang work for Manabe, and they have a rep for brutality. Inugami isn't worried. Inugami tracks Miko to a strip club where she's performing as a singer. It's a very different vibe from what American movies would lead you to believe strip clubs are like. Still naked women, though. Mickey is super strung out and in desperate need of a fix. Mickey leads Inugami back to the Yakuza lair. The gang push her around for a bit and then take her money and shoot her up. Inugami takes out several of the Yakuza tormentors by pelting them with coins and then unleashing his mad karate moves. During the melee, one Yakuza undergoes a freakout, much like the one that occurred at the beginning of the film, spasming and screaming about a tiger and bleeding all over from apparent tiger claw wounds. This scares off the other Yakuza who don't like fighting things they can't see. Inugami finds a notebook that spells out why Mickey was attacked. Her ex-boyfriend's father, a powerful politician, hired Manabe to have it done so that he could get his son to marry the girl that he wanted her to. Inugami takes Mickey home and ends up hooking up with her, which seems horribly unprofessional, not to mention medically risky. She's understandably very disturbed as a result of the horrible things that have happened to her. He uncovers more about her, and it seems she was killed by her tormentors, only to somehow be brought back to life, in which guise she cursed the scumbags to be killed by a spectral tiger. This inspires Ugami to think back to how, as a child, his mother told him that on the 15th day of every lunar cycle, aka the full moon, he'll transform into an invincible werewolf. He's the last member of the Inugami bloodline. All his relatives have been massacred. Inugami confronts the president of Manabe Productions directly. Turns out the dude is terrified that whatever came after Mickey's attackers is going to come after him next. The hitman goes after Mickey, but Inugami saves her with some impressive moves. But then Manabe's lackeys capture Inugami. One of them is the sexy motorcyclist who saved him earlier, so I'm confused. They haul him off, Mickey as well. It's implied this is on the orders from the government, who want to utilize the pair's supernatural attributes. Oh, the sexy motorcyclist is actually a sexy spy. That makes sense. Okay. They brainwash Mickey and use her Enraged tiger as a tool to commit untraceable assassinations. Inugami won't cooperate unless they release Mickey. Instead, they perform horrible surgical experiments on him without anesthesia. These also include a blood transfusion in which one of the gang's minions is given werewolf DNA. None of that really matters because the 15th day of the lunar cycle is at hand, and Inugami transforms not into a wolf or a wolf man, but into a more superpowered version of himself. He heals the surgical injuries inflicted on him. In this state, he busts chains and bends bars. Inugami breaks out of the bad guy's compound with the help of the sexy spy. Oh, her name is Katie. Inugami fights his wolf blood transfused nemesis. They match spectacular feat for spectacular feat, evenly matched, but the latter dies, however, since human and werewolf blood don't mix. Blood types matter, people. Inugami heads back to the forest stronghold where his family originated. He kind of just abandons Mickey. He faces a whole squad of bandits. They don't look like soldiers. He's caught in a net trap. The bandits plan on selling him back to the government. A hot chick out of nowhere rescues him. Her name is Taka. Inugami and Taka beat up and shoot a bunch of bandits before lighting the hideout on fire and fleeing in a hail of gunfire. She explains the bandits are the children of the people who massacred his clan. She hooks up with Inugami, of course she does. She also adds some vital information about Inugami's unique heritage. Her mother and his mother were friends. Inugami finally feels in control of his wolf powers. Next day, someone is shelling the area. Soldiers are after them. Inugami goes super wolf on them. Shrugging off bullets, he kills them all. Then the head of the agency unleashes the brainwashed Mickey on him. Her jealousy unleashes the invisible tiger. Taka does the sensible thing here and shoots Mickey before falling dead herself, having been slashed up by the invisible tiger. The government guys try to get away from the enraged lycanthrope, but he runs faster than their jeep and kills them both by forcing the jeep off of a cliff into a fiery crash. Inugami carries Taka's body away. The end. While Inugami is clearly labeled as a werewolf and described as having supernatural wolf powers, there is no makeup job and no transformation. I suspect that this was a budgetary decision. Now, werewolves in this movie show significant differences from werewolves in the Western world. The Inugami clan seem to be a fully functional society. They lack any uncontrollable killer instinct like we see in the West. This specific bit reminded me of fellow Japanese werewolf film, Wolf Children. There is no possibility of infection, and even the scientifically created hybrid was short-lived and unstable. There is no chance of a werewolf outbreak. No one need fear the very existence of a werewolf, unless you cross them. There is no mention of any lycanthropic vulnerabilities. During the 15th day of the lunar cycle, aka the full moon, these werewolves are seemingly unstoppable, nearly immune to physical damage with amazing strength and agility. But those gifts are limited to that single day. This is different from wolf children and Western werewolves in general, in different ways. Most Western werewolf movies are generous in their interpretation of the full moon. Not this movie. 1 day out of 28. That's it. The werewolves in Wolf Children could shift at will, but simply became wolves, not Inugami clan super wolf men. Let's talk about themes. One of the foundational principles of this project that I'm engaged in is that film uses the werewolf as a metaphor, but this movie made me struggle with that assumption. Inugami's wolf powers prove immensely critical in investigating his supernatural case. The abilities are functionally just a superpower he has 1 day out of every 4 weeks, and not even specifically tied to the wolf. He doesn't change forms. He doesn't lose control. He doesn't become more violent. It's fun, but it's not thematic in a way I can find to discuss. Maybe one of you can come up with something. I hope you can. But that doesn't mean there's nothing to talk about. Let's discuss some Japanese film history. Like any film school graduate, I know the basics of Japanese cinema, Akira Kurosawa. I'm not aware of a Kurosawa werewolf movie. Man, how awesome would that be? I wish. Anyway, let's talk about the development of Japanese cinema. I'm not going to go too much into history before World War II, but Japan does have one of the oldest cinema industries in the world. For the most part, Japanese cinema developed much like filmmaking in other areas of the world. A couple of fairly unique features that I'm aware of was a tradition of hiring storytellers that would essentially narrate silent movies. The other is a strong censorship pressure from the government promoting wartime propaganda. Of course, things changed once the war ended and the American military took temporary control of Japan. Unsurprisingly, Japanese cinema transformed significantly under American occupation. Authorities used cinema as a means to influence Japanese public opinion and to instill democratic values. The Information Educational Section, IES, actively engaged in censorship and monitored film production to ensure compliance with American values. This period saw the dissolution of the militaristic themes prevalent in pre-war cinema and gave rise to narratives reflecting the desire for peace, reconciliation, and a new democratic order. Japanese cinema during American occupation laid the groundwork for the industry's resurgence and international recognition in the years following. Filmmakers navigating the balance between adhering to American-imposed guidelines and preserving their cultural identity. Filmmakers of the period blended influences, resulting in cinematic landscapes reflecting the evolving socio-political climate of the post-war Japan. Directors like Yasujiro Ozu and Akira Kurosawa explored traditional Japanese values and social norms. Ozu's Tokyo Story from 1953, for instance, offered a nuanced portrayal of generational conflicts and shifting family dynamics, capturing the essence of post-war Japanese society. Tokyo Story was initially considered too Japanese to be successfully marketed in foreign markets. Kurosawa's Ikaru from 1952 stands out as a poignant exploration of existentialism and the search for meaning in a rapidly changing world. The film reflected not only the personal struggle of its characters, but also broader social reflections during the American occupation. The lifting of restrictions in 1952 allowed for greater artistic freedom, leading to a diverse range of films that examine the complexities of the human condition. Now, 1950, the decade, proved a pivotal decade for Japanese cinema, marked by post-war recovery, social transformations, and the ascendance of internationally acclaimed filmmakers, and reflected the country's collective introspection and reconstruction efforts. One defining aspect of Japanese cinema in the 50s was the rise of the Golden Age directors, who would leave an indelible mark on the global film landscape. Kurosawa continued to create cinematic masterpieces, exploring human complexities and morality in films like Seven Samurai from 1954. He not only garnered critical acclaim, but also played a crucial role in introducing Japanese cinema to the international audience. There is a reason why Kurosawa is the Japanese director most people can name. Alongside Kurosawa and Ozu, other directors like Kenji Mizoguchi were instrumental in shaping the era's cinematic landscape. Mizoguchi's visually stunning and socially conscious films like Ugetsu from 1953 and Sancho the Bailiff from 1954 further contributed to the Golden Age's artistic richness. The 50s also witnessed the creation of whole new genres and styles in Japanese cinema. Filmmakers like Ishiro Honda created kaiju with the iconic Godzilla from 1954, a film that transcended cultural boundaries and became a symbol of nuclear anxiety. To support the flourishing filmmaking talents, the 50s saw the consolidation of the Japanese film industry. Production companies like Toho and Shochiku thrived, contributing stability and growth of the cinematic landscape. The decade laid the groundwork for the continued expansion of Japanese cinema, both on the domestic and international fronts. The 1960s marked a dynamic period in Japanese cinema, witnessing a departure from traditional storytelling methods, reflecting Japanese society's changing values and concerns. One significant aspect of Japanese cinema in this decade was the advent of the Japanese New Wave, led by a new generation of filmmakers challenging established norms. Directors like Nagisa Oshima and Shohei Imamura spearheaded this movement, creating films that were more rebellious and reflective of contemporary issues. Oshima's Cruel Story of Youth from 1960 and Imamura's Pigs and Battleships from 1961 addressed themes of youth disillusionment and the impact of post-war economic development. The 1960s also saw a surge in films exploring the complexities of interpersonal relationships and social norms. Ozu continued his exploration of familial dynamics in Equinox Flower from 1958 and Late Autumn from 1960, while directors like Hiroshi Teshigahara offered a surreal take on human connections with Woman in the Dunes from 1964. These films delved into the emotional intricacies of their characters, providing nuanced insights into the human condition. Kurosawa continued to show why he is the GOAT with films like Yojimbo from 1961 and High and Low from 1963, showcasing extraordinary versatility in storytelling and visual style. The 1960s also saw continued evolution in Japanese film genres. Seijun Suzuki challenged the conventions of Yakuza cinema with his unconventional and stylized approach in films like Branded to Kill from 1967. Similarly, samurai films persisted in popularity, with iconic films like Hirikari from 1962 and Masasaki Kobayashi adding depth and social commentary to the genre. Japanese cinema continued to evolve and diversify during the 1970s. Oshima continued to challenge societal norms and conventions, evident in films like The Realm of the Senses from 1976. This sexually explicit and controversial film pushed boundaries, embodying the spirit of rebellion against traditional values. Ozu's An Autumn Afternoon from 1973 served as a poignant swan song to his illustrious career, encapsulating his signature contemplation on familial ties and social changes. Kurosawa, although facing some challenges, continued to create amazing films, showcasing his versatility and ability to adapt to changing cinematic landscapes. Genre films also flourished during this decade, with the continuation of iconic series such as the Zatoichi films and the kaiju genre with the Godzilla series. Cult classics like Lady Snowblood from 1973, directed by Toshiya Fujita, demonstrated the blending of genre elements with social commentary. This brings us to Wolf Guy, which seems like a good place to stop. Now let's talk about the manga series. I couldn't track down an English translation of the original manga. I could find the 2007 reboot. It's of a piece with the movie. Both are gritty crime dramas with a protagonist who gets nigh invulnerable the closer it is to the full moon. The only day he is truly human is the day of the new moon, which doesn't seem to fully match the lore of the film. It's more interesting to see that Inugami is a high school student in the manga. Inugami just voluntarily takes beating after beating. However, in the manga, he absolutely does transform into a neat-looking hybrid wolfman, which adds evidence to my hypothesis that the lack of transformation in the film was a cost-saving measure. The manga is definitely even spicier than the movie, so be warned if you're going to try and hunt it down. So, If you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Night of the Howling Beast, also titled The Werewolf and the Yeti from 1975. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back here next episode.